I'd ring a bell or I'd ding a glass or something, but I don't have anything. So welcome everybody. We'll get started semi-timely. Greg is not with us today because he had a pair of closings, and apparently the day job gets in the way of volunteer work. I don't know what he's thinking, but otherwise he would be here. Jessica wanted to be here because he has a new puppy, and she didn't care if Greg was here, but she wanted the puppy. Good to have visitors. Yay! I'm glad that happens. We'll take all of you we can possibly get on a regular basis. And especially those that happen to serve on the Main Street Board, that's a bonus because there's a double commitment there. I'm glad that happens. And, welcome, and we'll get started. Am I on? Am I okay? I can do it like this. That's all I know. 2 beats. Sorry, that's all I got. But so I'll call the meeting to order, and before we get started, kind of usual routine. Anybody travel somewhere and see something neat that we need to add to our list, Jessica is tabulating all that, and we're going to get it back. And I don't want to forget things. Did anybody take a road trip and see something that?
Yeah, I went to Shreveport, but I don't think we have any of those casinos up here.
That may happen someday.
Maybe someday.
But I'm pretty sure that Nacogdoches isn't going to be exactly positioned to be the casino mecca of Texas. Or anything.
There were plenty of cars over there with Texas license.
Yeah, they were paying taxes over there instead of here.
Has anyone mentioned Georgetown already?
I don't know. Did you go to Georgetown?
No, I'm planning on it. I'm going to be in Austin in a couple weekends without the kids for the first time.
Is that your first?
And I think we might stop in Georgetown because I have a couple of childhood friends who live there, and we were visiting. They were in town. We were visiting last night, and they just mentioned. I mean, they didn't know anything about the downtown steering or anything, and they mentioned that Georgetown has a lot of young families, but it's also a really great place for retirees, and they just said the downtown is really great because it seamlessly transitions. It's like, are you listening to our meetings? Seamlessly transitions from daytime businesses and serving a particular clientele into a really great nightlife. So I plan on checking it out before I leave Austin.
Anybody else got anything? I have one. I did go on vacation, which I like to do every now and then. My vacations usually involve boats and countries and places that there aren't other tourists. And I saw something and I thought, that makes a lot of sense. And I was on a boat, and when you come to a community down there in a little island town or something like that, most of them have kind of a central parking area. Everybody's in a little rubber dinghy. They all know go there. And everything is designed from that parking space. And it really hit home with me that if you think about it, when you come to Nacogdoches, where do you start? There's not a beginning. In every little island town you go to on a sailboat and go up in a rubber dinghy and trying to find perhaps the best beach bar around, you go to that central parking place, and the people and the signage, and you just walk up the first person saying, hey, if I want to get something to eat or have a drink, where do I go? Oh, you got to go over here, you got to go over there. And I really think that there's something to that and I know that Brian back there in the back, I'm trying not to say the word gateway, but I may say it anyway. But really, it's more than the gateway. It's once you get inside our town, where do you go to start? And so I want to put that on the list because I think that's something for us to think about down the road. Mario?
One thing I have been, I have baby boomer parents, and they've been looking at 55 plus communities. So I've been to some like Sun City, Kissing Tree, and San Marcos, and I'm just noticing a lack of 55 plus communities here that engineer that connection for people, and it's accessible, doesn't have a certain price point. And I'm wondering, we have opportunities here for density, opportunities to connect people who are older, because once you're 55, you're on a time clock where you've got 25 plus years before you're cycling through another set of community members. But we don't have that construction here billed as a 55 plus. I know we had one in discussion, but it got moved to 65. And that was a little confusing to me because 55 plus needs opportunities.
Well, and there was an effort, John, 30 years ago, we tried also to create that kind of community to lure actually alums back that had moved off and lived their life, and now they were looking for that kind of space, and because they lived in cities and things, they kind of had an environment they would want to live in, and we did not offer that here. And we tried.
We tried two different ways.
Yeah.
I can't remember when I was 55, but
So the last part of that is, I think as we look forward to whatever training we receive and what we share with the community, is we remember that important, usually about to retire group that needs something to do. I don't think we know what that looks like, is what I'm hearing in this community, so we have some education to do.
Well, you know, what was it, about 10 or 12 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce had us designated as a retirement village, one of the first in the state. Now, I don't know what they've done with it since that time, but I believe that's been about 10 or 12 years, hasn't it?
There is a newcomers club. I don't know how you find it.
I
only
they
know.
have 180 members. They meet every week.
Yeah, they meet a lot. I just know about them because we spoke to them and they had some fundraiser money that they gave to PAL. So there is a group. It's not like people living in a space. It's not a space, but there are people who get together and do that. So
They call themselves newcomers, and over half of them have been
been
here
here.
20 plus years.
Yeah. So.
I
I
feel
was
myself.
gonna say something.
Go ahead.
Because I didn't go anywhere, but I read two. I've got a couple of Matt's books I got from the library, and I've got The Happy City. And so this it's more about cities, but it did talk about what makes people happy. People need some nature and some green, but they need some social. You've got to build in some way for people to be around each other. You know, I know that the new subdivision that City Council approved has got those kind of houses with a two-car garage way out in front. You know, the front door kind of set back some, and no sidewalks. So I was worried that neighborhood won't, bring the social interaction that kind of makes a happy city a happy community.
Yep.
So it's good. This one is, I haven't finished it yet, Walkable City, and it's about downtown. It's mostly for bigger cities too, but, anyway, it's good. I'll finish it. I'll tell you more about it next time.
Well, I want to add to our homework assignment. We'll do this every time when we start. Go visit, see something somewhere else. But I want to add to that, and that is I want you to get out of your boxes and go and experience things in our city that you've never done or haven't done in a long time. I'll give you an example. I've been over to the cottage and things like that and all, but to be honest, the only time I'd ever been to the Red House Winery was an event. That's why I'm going there. Whereas I might come down to the cottage, just Janet and I on the day. We seldom think about walking over there. Janet doesn't drink wine, and she doesn't like it when I drink her wine and my wine too. I like it, but somebody said the pizza truck was over there, and so one night we were downtown, and I said, let's do something different. And Janet and I went over there, and I thought she would drink the wine with me, so I bought a bottle, and she didn't, which was really great. And we had pizza, and we sat there on the porch, and it was not an event. It was a complete different experience. I've been over there probably 10 times for events. It was not the same. And I thought, if somebody would do this, and it's easier to sell, and last weekend we had friends in Jacksonville that had come in to visit, and we went up to Keepersall and went to their tasting room, and sitting on their little tasting room veranda felt exactly like sitting on the porch at Red House Winery when there wasn't an event going on. It was just people sitting there socializing. So I really encourage you, in addition to going and visiting other towns, if you haven't been to Miller's Crossing in 100 years, take an afternoon and go out there and see it. If there's a restaurant or if you haven't been down to Ben's Place or something like that, go experience that. Go out to Wanda's Winery. Try some of those things that you wouldn't normally do, because we may have more here than we realize even, and we're not packaging it together right. So we'll talk in the future about what you see in another town, and we'll talk a little bit about what new experiences you have in our own town and try to get a better feel for it. With that, let's move to the next thing, and that's the review and the edit of the Downtown Summer Report, of which you all got an email a couple of weeks ago. Some of you gave some input. It has been changed slightly, but I'll let Jessica review all that.
And actually went a little
Okay.
So a few things I wanted to show y'all, that I've been getting people emailing me about all sorts of different cities that are also doing downtown plans, and looking at long-term planning and how to make downtowns mesh with the rest of their cities. And I will send y'all links to all of these articles so you can read them. But there's stuff like downtown Pflugerville is expanding. They're looking at doing things in their downtown boundaries and then adding sections near their downtown and kind of connecting all of them together. Parking, landscaping, new shopping areas. So they're looking at that. New Bronzeville's actually used some of their economic development money to work out a deal with Union Pacific to possibly move their rail yard out of their downtown area. And of course, not saying we do any of these things, but they're looking at these big picture ideas because their plan is to then use that space to add retail, to add green spaces adjacent to their downtown in what is right now a very commercial area and it's industrial. So they're looking at that. And then Little Old Palestine, they're dedicating about $10 million over 5 years to improve their downtown, whether it's walkability, sidewalks, ADA compliance. Part of their stuff is $7 million in the next couple years, or I think it's 10 years, for streets, and then $17 million in sewer repairs or replacements. But they're also looking at ADA sidewalks, utilities, pocket parks, public restrooms, parking, things like that. So we're doing all these things, and a lot of towns right around us are doing the same type of stuff. So as I get these articles sent to me, I'm going to start sending them to y'all. Once again, not saying we do these exact things, but these are some really interesting ideas that other similar towns are doing. So maybe we can get some inspiration from some of them. So yeah, now we go into the summary. So I sent this out. You should have had about a week and a half, 2 weeks to look over this. I got a few edits from a few people, some small things. So what I was really hoping is just any edits, additions, changes you wanted to make to this document. If there's something I completely skipped over that you thought was a really important part of the discussion, please tell me if we can add this. Kind of my plan is to edit this today, go back and make some edits, send it back to you for us to look at in June. Hopefully it'll be somewhat finalized, and then we'll just keep adding to it until we present it to council. That would probably be sometime around August when DTJ has our existing conditions report ready, kind of saying, here's what we got from some initial feedback, here's what we got from our research on the town, from what y'all told us, and, our first visioning sessions we did together. So they'll be submitting that to y'all, and then we'll take this committee report and their report and present that over to City Council. So this will be kind of our living document for a while. But really, I wanted y'all to put eyes on it, give me edits, tell me if we think we're going in the right direction with how it's written and organized. So yeah, really, I was just hoping for any feedback y'all had on it.
I think two things that after I've had time to think about it, John said something about putting the original square mile attachment, and early on here, we looked at several maps. And one day we had an activity where we outlined kind of areas that weren't considered any of the above that we might consider, like the whole Atlantic Creek area down by the park and Festival Park and back up behind towards Clear Springs, that area. I think it would do us some good if there's a way to consolidate that into something that says this is all on the table to talk about. And then I think actually our compiled list of things that we've seen other places of just brainstorm ideas might be good to include also, so that they know that as we go out to the community or city commission or whatever, that we're looking outside of the community some too.
And the maps, you're talking about the ones we went over with DTJ that we all kind of drew on?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was thinking the same.
Remember, we had to put places where you could have like gatherings or socialized spots and what areas weren't included. And I think it'd be interesting to kind of put those back out there so we don't forget them.
So kind of include those and then explain what the discussion was, and then we do want to consider all possibilities.
Because you needed some more.
I'm happy. I'm happy this was just my throwing stuff against the wall and see what stuck and make sure that I adequately summarize what all we went over. But like I said, if there's something I didn't put in there, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you have it. So.
The one that I read that you sent us, it seemed like at the very end there was a list of all of our ideas we had.
Yes.
And that was down here.
So I sent that out. I didn't print that. Actually, no, I didn't print that. It's in the very back.
Okay.
Or maybe
I looked through to see my ideas were there.
Yeah, there should be one attached. If not, I can get those copies run off.
That was maybe
I don't
the most interesting idea.
Yeah.
They were like
Yeah, and I think I sent out the initial email, I didn't print them off today, but Brian, if I here, because you'll make copies for him.
Yeah, I think all the different ideas that we've been throwing out there, because it's nice to see what other downtowns are doing, but everyone has, you don't want to accidentally make a downtown, it's just as good as we brought it up somewhere else, you know?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah, anyway, that's, thank you.
Jessica, on page 7, bullet point number 3, where it says add landscaping to blend height differences along sidewalks,
Yes.
are we talking planters or permanent? And the reason why I'm asking is planters require upkeep, rotation, which is cost, but I'm thinking Central Park, New York City. You
Yeah.
put something there and it grows for 80 years, you don't have to worry about it, unless we get a freeze or something.
Yeah, and these, as far as on page 7, those were recommendations from Texas Historic Commission as part of that streetscape study. And so they didn't go through and specify which ones.
Do we need to do that as, say, a more permanent landscape versus a rotational?
We can, as we go through this, kind of what we prefer, because there is a consideration there. You know, we have beautiful planter boxes downtown, hanging baskets, and those are great, but then it requires city staff to maintain them. And once you get to the summer, they have to be watered and, you know, do all the great stuff our wonderful part-time city gardener does. So that is something we can look at. These are just recommendations from THC saying we need more landscaping and kind of blend heights and stuff like that.
Perfect.
I do have to say, everyone who visits our town comments on our planters.
They do.
So they're kind of a big deal. I mean, I have a mother-in-law who comes down and she like gushes over them after every time she visits because they're gorgeous. So you know, it is valuable to have those extra things as well. So, and we do have spaces on Pecan Street. There are trees. And there's, you know, dirt there right now. Like, we could plant things in the ground, because we do have some of those spaces already.
Well, and remember, we're thinking big. This may or may not happen, but when we did the walking tour, we talked about completely new defined spaces like Commerce Street or Pillar or whatever it is on the other side of town. And, you know, when you go to do stuff like that, you may have some new defined areas that lend themselves to kind of what Mario was talking about, and Main Street proper, you know, lends itself really well to plant lots of hanging baskets. So,
But going big, I'm thinking when you go to Tuscany, it has a unique landscape.
yeah.
You know, you go to New York City, it has a unique landscape, which doesn't seem like it's high maintenance per se. So,
Yeah, go big. I mean, at some point in time out there, we'll have to funnel this down to big was beautiful, but we'll never be able to make this happen. But I think it's a mistake to go small at the beginning. Go big and let's see what's still potential when we get out there.
Yeah, and I think when you go big, I mean, we can dream and decide anything we want, and then it's kind of DJ's helping us figure out how we get there initially, and maybe it's not all at once, maybe it's kind of a staged approach, where we add more planter boxes and more staff, or, you know, do something in a different way. So I think we can dream as big as we want, and then it's just us working with a consultant on how to figure out how to fit all that in there. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so Brian's passing around. This is what I've compiled so far from our meetings, our emails. Some of them are verbatim from what y'all said. Other ones I tried to summarize a little bit. And so if you don't see your ideas on there, please let me know and I can add them. Or if there's other stuff you want to add, we can do that as well.
You know, I think we have a wonderful opportunity. My wife and I usually at home by 5:30. But a couple of weekends ago, we were downtown about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And there were just a lot of people downtown walking around. It was just a great feeling. I said, this is pretty neat. And there were people taking pictures. They seemed to be enjoying the evening. It was just a lot going on downtown. And we decided we're going to come back downtown about 7:30, 8 and enjoy that too. So I thought it was I think there's an opportunity to create something really special, like so many towns that provide that type of environment. It was just a good walking evening, and so they were just having a great time. So we'll be back. So you see us down there about 7:30, 8 o'clock. We're not in bed at that time. we're out having a great
It's
time.
good to stay up past 7.
That's right.
Guys, I'm gonna let y'all know that this Saturday at the Red Wine House, my roommate's band is playing and singing, and they're really, really good.
Okay, Jessica, so that I don't get ahead of you again, I believe the next thing is we're gonna talk about meetings in the box, correct?
Yes, so, and of course, if y'all have more edits, send them over to me. I'm happy to make edits. Like I mentioned, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. So please send me anything you want in here. So really today, we're gonna dedicate the rest of our time to training on meeting in a box. This is one of the outreach tools that ETJ is gonna use for some of our community outreach. This will be paired with, online surveys, then actually coming to town and coming to some of the bigger events, doing focus groups, interviews. So this is just one of our tools. Essentially, this is going to be something that we have posted on a website, and then all of us can use. We can point people towards it. We can do it with our individual groups. And so today, Civic Brain and BTJ are going to do the training for us, and then we can answer questions, and they are happy to kind of workshop and do this sort of stuff with them. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Ryan.
As she's getting him on there, I will tell you when we talked about this so that we all understand. Members of this group, members of the Main Street Board, we'll be able to take these meetings in the box and go out to church, Sunday school class, the horticulture club, whatever it is. And if we want city support, we can have that. But it's also created so that there will be some people that maybe don't want any of us to come there. And that's okay too. It's designed so that somebody can actually follow the instructions and facilitate gathering information without any of us involved in it, and still provides good information. So there'll be a lot of different formats that those meetings in the box can be executed. Is that right, Ryan?
That is correct. Yeah, I think I'll turn it over to Brisa in just a second. She'll walk you through how this is going to work. But as you'll see, it's pretty straightforward in that really anybody in the community will be able to sign up, follow some instructions. They'll be able to do it online or offline, whatever they're comfortable with. And it can be a formal group. It could be an informal group. It's really just up to them. It's a way to scale engagements where ourselves, as well as you guys, don't have to be running every meeting. So it just lets people kind of do their own thing, but still feel like their voice is being heard. So I'm going to turn it over to Brisa, and she's going to walk you through how it's going to work. And then just a quick update on the timing. The project website is looking to probably launch likely next week. You'll see the English version will kind of appear first, followed very shortly by the Spanish version as soon as that translation is done. And so, Brisa, you're going to see some things that are going to be on that project site, including this meeting in a box landing page. So, Brisa, let you take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. So first, before I get into the meeting in a box and how that all works, one thing that we did want to show y'all is where we are at with the branding and what we're moving forward with. So I'll show you that first real quick, and then we'll walk through the meeting in a box. So I'm assuming you guys can see my screen.
Not yet.
I can see it on the online version, but it looks like in the room, there it goes.
There we go.
Okay. All right. This took a bit. Okay, cool. So yeah, the last time that we were there in person, we showed you kind of our initial concepts and got a lot of feedback from both, the downtown committee, the comp plan committee, as well as staff. And from there, we took all that in and kind of, parsed out what are the key themes and things that people seem to have really latched onto. Worked through it a little bit more with the city. We tried some things around the word connect. We tried a couple different options, but ultimately we're moving forward with this NAP together. It's similar to one that you would have seen in that original meeting. However, we did, hear a lot about bringing in, liking that one of the other options had the state shape as well as the star for where Nacogdoches is, as opposed to some pine trees, different kind of icons alluding to trees. And so that's been incorporated in here. But yeah, so here is the project brand. And like Ryan said, the project website will take this on. So you'll start seeing this a lot, and, can refer now to the project when people ask you questions about it as NAC together. Depending on maybe if there's a specific thing related to the comp plan or the downtown plan, you might sometimes see it with, kind of a subline that says downtown master plan or comprehensive plan, but it'll all fall under this umbrella of NAC together. So that's the update on that. Now to get to the meeting in a box. So I think there's been pretty good setup already. This could be something that very formal groups do, very informal groups like book clubs or, just a random group of friends could do. People could want y'all to participate and help them facilitate, or they could, like you said, not want the city or anyone on the committee involved at all and do it on their own. But they would get to this link from the project website, like Ryan said, about doing their own meeting in a box. And so they come to this landing page, be able to learn, a little bit more about what exactly a meeting in a box is, why you would do it, why it would be important. If they would rather, have a facilitator, someone from city or the city or one of the committees, they can send a request to have a facilitator at their meeting instead of running it on their own. But as they continue down the page, you'll get to learn a little bit more about the toolkit, this meeting in a box toolkit, and what it contains. There's several different topics for discussion that people can dive into. And then there are also pretty detailed facilitator instructions. I will click on this now, but just know that what is the doc that it's pulling up right now is a placeholder. We're gonna, now that we have everything finalized, we'll style this out so it's on brand and looks really nice and feels like a little booklet that people are getting. But this facilitator guide you would download before, say I was interested in running my own meeting, I would download this before that meeting, say like a week or two before, to really just understand what is going to be asked of me as a facilitator. So it gives, a nice overview of kind of the roles. You need a host, a note taker, all your participants, gives some best practices of just how to set up and run the meeting. So people, if they're not familiar with doing something like this, they have this to fall back on. We expect it probably to take around 60 to 90 minutes, depending on how talkative their group is. Gives details for whether they're running a virtual meeting on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, or if they're actually doing something in person. And then it gives a little bit of background on each of the topics so that they can fully understand kind of what we're asking and why we're asking it, as well as just some ways to get people talking or to move on if things are getting too, tense or stressful, as well as a sample invitation for inviting people to their meeting. So they would get that first. Then let's say I've read through my facilitator guide and I'm like, okay, yep, I want to run this meeting with my group of friends. I go about scheduling that, and a week later or so, I come back to this site when I'm ready to hold my meeting. And I would either fill out this form if I want to do the meeting online, or there will also be a worksheet version that they can do on paper that they can download and print. But let's say I'm going to do it online, so I'll fill out all this information. I won't do it right now, but just so you guys can see, and I would be ready to start my meeting.
Could you read through that
So,
for us real quickly? Information that you're asking for?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Could you read through that last page? Just tell us what it is. We can't really see I can't.
Teresa, can you go through the information you're asking from them, like the contact information?
Sure. Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, I'll zoom in too, so hopefully that helps a little bit. But basically asking what's their facilitator's name, their email, and then their group name or description of their group if it's a little bit more informal. The date of the meeting, what the location that they're having their meeting is, how many people are in attendance, and then there's this checkbox that they can check if they're willing to have a follow-up call with someone if they're yeah. So that way if you guys need a little bit more clarity on answers, we can see who would be open to actually having that conversation. So once they filled all that out, they start their meeting. And the first thing, whether you're doing the PDF downloadable, printable worksheet version is all the same information, just in worksheet form. So the first thing that every group would need to do is go through all of this project background content so that everyone in the room or on the Zoom call has a decent understanding of what the Knack Together project is, what are its goals, and then it specifically gets into, okay, what's a comprehensive plan, what is a downtown plan, and what is the corridor study. And so the facilitator would read all of these things out. They would kind of discuss it as a group if needed. If, some people have questions or are still a little bit confused, they can talk through it together. But this is getting everyone on the same page first. And after they go through all of this content that explains, what it is that this project is actually doing, that's when they're able to go to the discussion questions. And so there are 8 topics that people can, discuss in their groups. If they're really motivated, they can definitely discuss all 8 and answer the questions for all 8 topics. But they can also just pick and choose based on what's relevant to, their group. So for instance, if it is a downtown related group, they could just do the downtown one and that would be totally fine. And then I'll click into downtown as our example, since we're talking downtown with the downtown committee today. You get into a topic and it has just the set of questions that you will discuss as a group. And so there are 4 questions per topic because we don't want this to go on forever, right? We want to keep people's attention and not make them feel like we're saddling them with hours and hours of discussion. But for example, so on this downtown topic, the first question is, what does a vibrant downtown Nacogdoches look like to you? And they would discuss that as a group, come up with their answers, their group consensus, and then whoever is in charge of writing the answers can start to type it in right in there, move on to the next question. What types of places and businesses are missing that you would like to see added to downtown in the future? And so they go through all of these questions. Some questions like this one, they need a little bit more prompting to get them talking and make sure that they know what we're talking about. So this question, what types of projects should the city prioritize for city funding? Why should the city prioritize them? Project examples include, but are not limited to, and then it has this list. So things like streetscape improvements, water fountains, sculptures, murals, etc., so that they can get kind of an idea of what we're talking about. So you might see some questions that do have a little bit more explanation involved. But after they go all the way through, these 4 questions per topic, and they've discussed their answers and put them in as a group, just one set of answers per group. Not, we don't need everyone getting on this side or filling out their own worksheet. It would just be group consensus, one set of responses. They would submit their answers. And at that point, it would take them back to the, topic page where they could then go choose another topic to discuss or completely X out of it if they're done. They just want to discuss, whatever one they chose. There's also a way to upload your results. So if you chose to do the offline PDF version, we'll still get that same information we asked on that initial facilitator name, email, etc. But then there's an upload form field so that we can get a picture or PDF of their worksheet if they did that offline. And then there's also at any time you can jump around, say that, the group gets stuck on one question and they want to go back to the project background and, review that again, talk about that a little bit more, or just jump from topic to topic, they can do that as well. And so that's the overall flow of how this meeting in a box would work. And so there's still a couple of things we just need to finish out, but it's essentially ready to go. And so I'm curious, just kind of on initial, review, if there's any questions that y'all have about how this works so that you guys feel armed to then go, explain it to people when they ask about it.
John, any questions?
I really like, when we talk to people, I want to get people because people have a hard time saying much more than, well, we need an HEB, and that's kind of where the conversation always ends. I mean, so any kind of language, I know the questions will be helpful. So I guess that's it, just those questions we have there. But,
Yeah, and Ann, I'll mention one thing.
Just trying to get people to expand their thinking.
Absolutely, and that's why we put the option to request a facilitator, and hopefully some groups will.
Yeah.
Will they request either city staff or a committee member that comes and runs through it with them. We also put the option on the bottom, would you be willing to have a follow-up call?
Yeah.
Because I do anticipate a lot of people will just say, I want an HEB.
Yeah.
And so hopefully if they answer that way, they have clicked that button, and then me or Miles or somebody can call them and be like, hey, like, let's maybe further discuss it. Is it just you want more food options? Is it you want more full-time jobs?
Right,
More
right.
variety, and maybe get to the bottom of those answers, and then help get DTJ to kind of help us,
Yeah.
or Civic Grant to help us kind of go through some of those and figure out what they were really asking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those two options, we can't force them to
Right.
talk to us afterwards,
Yeah.
but we can at least give them the option.
The kind of interviewing skills that we bring up.
Exactly.
So,
But I think
Right.
the consulting firm early on was talking to us and training us, and they talked about learning to ask the right questions. And, you know, if people say, you know, we need more townhouses, you know, we need more townhouses, you know, we need more second story living downtown. It's more of, well, why? Do you really need more people living downtown? What kind of people are going to live downtown? So, for instance, if it's 55 plus retirement community downtown, you know, a flat on the upper floor, not gonna work out, because there's these stair things that get harder every day, you know, and so some of us have been trained, and you'll do it a couple times, and you'll be trained too, through trial and error, you know, to ask those right questions. What are you really looking for? Is, you know, because when we talk about, you hear people say all the time, we need more people living downtown. Well, why don't I go get 4 fraternities and move them downtown? And I'm pretty sure that pretty quickly people say, well, no, not that kind of people, you know? And so we really need to discuss, you know, what kind of people could live downtown, who would it be convenient for? And I think we got to get to some of those deeper questions.
Yeah, that's where I'm hoping a lot of people let us follow up, because I'll steal one of Ryan's things he's mentioned before, is that all the teenagers said they wanted malls, and it wasn't really like for shopping in the malls, it was they wanted a place to hang out that they didn't get kicked out of and they didn't have to spend money on. So hopefully people will let us follow up with them. We can kind of get down to what they're really looking for, whether it's I actually want a mall for shopping or I just want a place to hang out with my friends.
Right. And the questions, you know, we've gone over those as a team and with Jessica and Alina. So they're all designed to make sure that, you know, we're not just asking like a straight yes or no, we're asking the why and trying to get a little bit deeper. There's also some guidance in the facilitator guide to help, you know, if it's not one of y'all or someone from the city facilitating to kind of help get that. But then also some of it really is on kind of the back end of interpreting what people mean, you know, so it's a little bit of it happens at all of those steps. Does that make sense?
so my question to you is, okay, we're gathering this data from the entire city or whoever we're doing outreach. What's the culminating activity? Is it going to be our public meetings, or how are we going to use this information?
Yeah, so one thing to that, and then I'll let Francois also probably answer part of that. One thing to keep in mind with the meeting in the box is I view the meeting in the box as like the icing on the cake. It's the extra engagement that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten. We're still going to have all of the professionally facilitated focus groups. We're still going to have a public survey. We still have all the existing conditions of the planning team. And so we're definitely not looking and expecting and hoping that the meeting in the box captures all the engagement that we need. It's literally just a way for you guys to scale this beyond the scope of having a consultant there or the staff there running those. And so really anything we get with meeting in a box is bonus. I view it as, and it's great extra input. But then to directly answer your question, and then I'll kind of hand it to Francois to more properly answer that. All of that engagement we do, all the focus groups, all the interviews, all the surveys, that is going to culminate into, you know, that first in-person event down there, where we kind of give that big overview of, all right, here's what we've heard across everything, not just meeting in the box. Francois, you want to add to that?
Yes, absolutely. And let me just first touch base on the first thing that you mentioned, Ryan. And by the way, hello, everybody. It's good to see everyone again after a number of months that we had the visioning session. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have Civic Brand present to you today. I think an important step in the process. So the value of the meeting in the box to me also lies in the fact that you know, it allows reaching people, and it allows hearing things that potentially we would never have heard. Not staff, not the consultant, nobody other than the people that know what they talk about or what is interesting to them. But if they don't have a forum to share that, nobody will hear it. So what we do is we just create another forum, another opportunity for people to share something that is important to them. And again, I applaud a civic brand that came up with this idea of a meeting in a box, because it's truly a way to reach out to those individuals and communities that are hard to reach, or that you sometimes just don't hear from. So I just wanted to make that point. How we will use this is indeed what Brian mentioned, is that this is just one part of a lot of engagement effort, a lot of tasks, a lot of activities and events where we will learn from the community what is important to them. So, but what will happen is that as a consultant team, we will read through all of that. We will gain an understanding of what people say, and all of that will help influence us and help us making better recommendations at the end of the day for the plan. So that's how it will be used. It truly becomes part of a mosaic of building blocks that will help create a foundation, which is the public engagement, onto which we will build the plan and the vision.
One thing too, you know, if you remember, we began making a list of contacts and organizations in the community, and we'll be pushing this out to them. Please do a meeting. We'll host it on your own. We'll be doing all that. But I really encourage, you know, everybody in this room is here because you got a touch point to kind of your own unique sector, whatever that might be. And it's really important that you kind of be a champion to make sure that we hear from all voices, not just the ones, you know, that you are typically associated with, but push that. Don't let us miss anyone. Own some responsibility there as we begin to see the comprehensive list of all the names and contacts that we had, and we'll begin to see if they've been, you know, done a meeting in the box or been included. And if you see a sector we've missed, or you see we've only done, you know, one in the Hispanic, you know, community, well, don't stand for it. Say, we got to get 5 more from there. You know, have some ownership and kind of your touch points like that.
And I think at the very beginning, it was mentioned that that was going to be translated in Spanish.
Yes.
So is that along with the guiding questions? And then I guess my other question is, once everything is submitted, because people can document, obviously the answers, is it expected, for example, if I guide some meetings, that, because I can do either way, like whenever I get the answers in Spanish, do I just put them in there in English for you to see, or do I just kind of verbatim put them in Spanish, and then someone will be able to translate for you guys?
So I think, and Ryan can answer part of this as well on their back end, I mean, yes, all this will be translated as far as you can do it in English or in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you have the ability to where you could translate it into English when you submit it, that would be wonderful. It just lets us get that information faster.
Well, the guides and the facilitation stuff is all dual language. It's both ways.
Okay, great.
Brian, Brisa, y'all have anything to add to that part of it?
No, I think that's a good summary. I mean, we'll provide the content in both English and Spanish, and then, yeah, if you are a facilitator and you facilitate it in Spanish, but you can take that extra step to translate it back to English, that's certainly helpful. But if not, the city staff is handling the translation, the actual translation of things. Our team is handling like cloning things and dropping their translation in. Anything that comes in Spanish, that would kind of get kicked back to the city staff to do that translation again and kind of submit that to DTJ. So it certainly adds an extra step, but it's definitely a step that's worth taking if we get meetings that are conducted in Spanish.
With this, because it looks great in theory, but I have experienced that sometimes when, like, if I'm actually going there and do it, would they be like a pretend modeling of, you know, someone, because I would love to see how kind of that works, even if it's someone just pretend like we're the audience and they're about to have a meeting using that tool. I mean, even if we're not pretending, just
but just gonna run like I'm gonna say like a mock meeting. So then, I mean, to me that would be very helpful because that way, at least we all have like the same idea of what, because even though it seems very step by step and things, but I think for me it will be helpful to see like a mock, you know.
Okay. So as far as, do you think that would be most helpful as far as like if we run through one section right now together, or it'd be more helpful, you think, to have, you know, Elena and I pretend to have a meeting together and do a video of it? How do you think that the best way to convey that?
Like, to me, I would like to see like what is expected. Like if I, because I'm already thinking of like different sites that I can share this with the Spanish-speaking community or the different opportunities that I would have. But yet again, I would like to see it. So then, I just don't want to be short or not having or not presenting, you know, the way they're expected, or we all can do it in a different way because I just feel that it will be helpful, at least for me.
So you're thinking about norming and calibrating how we conduct the meeting.
Yes.
That way it's done in a professional manner, in a consistent manner, and it leads to the feedback that the questions are asked.
Could you, if you saw that done on a mock meeting, like if Jessica got a couple people and we did a mock meeting,
Yes.
and made a video and it was out there, can it be in English?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I think we got the warm bodies in the city staff to do that, but if you said no, it needed to be done in Spanish too,
No.
congratulations, you just volunteered. You know? But I think that would be pretty easy to do, to just do kind of a little mock meeting, especially the beginning of it and into one mock so you get an example.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to just add to that, if I can, I think that's great if you guys want to do a, you know, kind of a mock meeting, give each other some feedback and best practices. The facilitation guide that Brisa skimmed through is a really great resource. But I think another thing to just be open to and keep in mind, if this happens 20 times, all 20 meetings are going to look pretty different. You know, a meeting of 10 senior citizens compared to a sports team, compared to a book club, in different settings, in someone's home, in a U-shaped conference room like you guys are in, it's going to look very different, and that's okay. And some will have a very professional feeling, facilitated conversation, and some will just sound like a group of friends, you know, rolling up their sleeves and being, all right, downtown, what do we want? What do you got, Bob? And what do you got, Joe? And they'll just talk, you know. And so I think that's encouraged and good, is that whoever is facilitating it, they don't need to conform to how we would want them to do it necessarily. We want them to follow the best practices, but it's their meeting, it's their group. We want them to do it in a way, in a setting that's comfortable for them and how their group wants to gather the information. So again, I think it's great if you guys do a mock one just to practice it, but I also want to be open to the idea that these are going to look different depending on who's doing it.
So really we could do something as far as like making sure all of y'all know what website to go to, like what the link is, where to download the guide, how to click on certain things. So really something like that, and then giving all the guidance of if your book club's meeting, if your church is meeting, if it's your little league team, like have some freedom, talk to them however you normally would. It doesn't have to be super, you know, formal or anything like that. So give y'all some guidance on that, but make sure you know how to actually do it so we don't skip a step.
And one thing, a little clarification, when you look at those 8 boxes, if you were to go out and conduct a meeting in your role on this committee, which is the downtown master plan, you don't have to hit all those boxes. You hit the boxes that kind of lay into the downtown. So keep in mind that not every meeting will go through all 8 sets of questions. Some will only go through 3 or 4 of those because it fits, you know. And when the comprehensive plan is doing meetings about infrastructure, you know, they may not hit the downtown one, you know, or they may not hit the arts one or something like that. So we have flexibility to do. If we do it enough, they get a good quantity of information across the board. Randy, did you have something?
Yeah, we can also invite each other to our own meetings so that you can see how somebody else is running a meeting who might be, you know, more comfortable. So.
Absolutely, and especially because Miles has already looked at this one, city staff has looked at this several times. If it's something that you're facilitating the meeting, but you still want me to come just to help, even if it's your first time doing it, and you're like, I just need someone to make sure I'm clicking the right buttons, I'm happy to do that. Brian and Bethany in the back are happy to do that. They're gonna shake their heads and say yes. Elena's happy to come as well. So even if it's just you want another person to come, make sure you know how to do it the first time, we can do that as well.
And Evelyn, I would say this too, years ago, like, you probably weren't even born, thanks a lot, but we had a bond election here in Nacogdoches. We failed a bunch of them, and we had to pass one. And we wanted to go out to the Hispanic community, and you know, my white man thinking said, who speaks Spanish and who can go do that? And they made a point to me, they said, no, you need to go, and you need to be there, and you need to get a translator, because it shows that you care enough to be there rather than just sending someone else. So I think Brandy's right. I mean, I'd hate to go do one of these meetings, but somebody's going with me. One of y'all's going. I'm not going alone. First of all, I want to have fun, and I'm taking somebody with me to play with. But I think really, truly thinking that through, and you know, I think there'd be valuable input if you went to a certain Hispanic population that you had to feel they really don't want anybody from the committee there other than me. I think that's right and appropriate. And the very next day, you could be going to a different kind of collection of Hispanics and say, I think it would be a sign of real desire to include them if somebody from the city staff came. And so I think you got to make some gut calls there, what works, and I think both work. And we just have to be kind of creative there. So.
And then Francois has his hand raised.
Yeah, just quickly, I just wanted to quickly, 2 points. The fact that you want to have some example or just do a mock meeting, I think it's a great idea because you build confidence that way. And I know this is daunting for many of you because you haven't done it before. And just by going through the steps and you're doing it yourself, and people can give you some critique or some advice, absolutely, I think it's a great idea that you want to do that. What I do want to point out is that, and it was mentioned earlier that, you know, there's all the different topics. Now, why all the topics relate to the comprehensive plan, and there's one downtown topic, that doesn't mean that there's some of those topics that really belong to the downtown discussion as well. And I want to point out, for instance, arts and culture. I think arts and culture is a very important component of any downtown. So to me, that really relates to the downtown environment. There's one on historic preservation, very specifically. I think it's called arts and culture perhaps, but it addresses preservation as well. That again is very applicable to downtown. So you can choose based on the audience or the group that you meet with. You can choose, do you want to do the questions under the downtown topic, or do you want to do arts and culture, or do you want to do historic preservation? I mean, you can choose what you believe will get the best out of that group in terms of what they can share with you, and that can be brought to us as the design team.
Do you have any other questions or concerns or thoughts?
So I'm thinking about like getting my neighbors together, you know, having a little neighborhood meeting, and it'd probably be outdoors in the backyard and have a barbecue or something. So I might not have the computer, I might just print out the questions so they can have them to look at and think about, and then
Yes.
we can have a little discussion, not just be taking notes.
Yes.
You know, not be limited and later go put it on the computer.
Correct. I think all those formats are, you know, and pretty quickly we'll get all the links. So like for instance, you know, I mean, you'd be able to take your phone even and facilitate a meeting by just clicking down to it and then taking notes of what the answers are. And you'd have to go back and do a little homework at that point in time because, you know, I think there'd be environments that, you know, if you know, we were saying, hang on, I got to put that in right now, it's going to mess the meeting up. So you might have to do that sometimes, gather the information and go stick it in the right boxes. But I think there'll be, you know, we'll do a meeting like this at, you know, Rotary. Well, they have big screens and microphones and it'll look just like this. But your backyard party is just as important.
This may come up later, but I'm envisioning having a air-conditioned place behind our booth at the Blueberry Festival where we can do meetings in the box throughout the day with a laptop, with chairs, pulling in groups.
Yes, because I'll check with the chamber, but I believe our booth is right in front of City Hall, which is where I always request it, mainly so I don't have to cart
It's
all
right
my
where-
stuff across
where,
it.
It's right in front of City Hall.
It should be right in front of City Hall. I'm gonna double check with the chamber just because that way we don't have to cart all of our stuff. So if it is, we should be able to use city council chambers to kind of bring people in there, run through some of this stuff, whether it's printed out and they fill out a different survey, or if it's we run through this whole thing. Because with Blueberry, you know, some people, if they're blowing and going, they may want to come in for a second, you know, to cool off, fill out 5 or 6 questions, so they're ready to go. So we may see if this is the correct format, or if there's a different, shorter survey we can get for them, or even just getting all their contact information and adding them to our list. But yeah, we should be able to have at least some place for people to sit down, have a conversation, and then give us some feedback on this.
One thing on the blue side note, on the Blueberry Festival, something I really encourage, because we'll all try to sign up, take shifts, and work the booth and all that kind of stuff. We've got access to people that live here all year long. That's a moment in time where we want to take, just because somebody doesn't live here doesn't mean we want to talk to them. What do you see in our town? What's missing? What would you like to see if you came to visit? So don't be scared of they're from Conroe. Great, come on in. You know, it's not just about the community that lives here. It's about the community that visits here also.
It would be nice to have a short, you know, paper one for those occasions where you don't get to have a whole meeting in a box. Maybe call it an encounter on a page. I like that, a meeting in a box. You know, just to live with that. But remember a long time ago, there was a thing for everybody that wanted to go in and answer a bunch of questions about Nacogdoches. Remember that? I don't remember. You know, that might. I remember those questions were.
We did a survey last year at Blueberry Festival before we had DTJ on board and Civic Grand, where we were telling people, hey, we're starting a downtown master plan and comp plan process. Here's what that means. So we did some of that outreach last year at Blueberry, and we had some broad questions about like what's missing in Nacogdoches, what do you love about Nacogdoches. So we did that, and we actually had quite a few responses. We also gave out those old church hand fans, and so we were very popular because it's real hot at Blueberry. So we're looking at doing that again this year. So hopefully we have a giveaway that people can take with them if they're not going to stop, and then maybe we have that option to do a 1-page sheet, because the meeting in a box is wonderful, but it's not going to work for every kind of outreach. This is just one of them, so maybe a 1-page encounter on page type thing would be more helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little QR codes are becoming really popular again. What if we put one of those on the fan?
We
that
did
takes
that last
them
year, and it was
to
super
somewhere?
popular.
Yeah.
And people scanned that QR code and went to the website.
Yeah.
So we did that last year. We are planning on doing that again this year. 'Cause
Awesome.
it was, rather than being like, okay, so this one's easy. 'cause
Yeah.
it's,
If you don't have to keep that paper, you got that fan. Like,
Exactly.
That's,
Yeah, so that was very popular last year. We didn't have to say at the time, you know, go to nacogdochesplans.com and do this. And nactogether.com is easy to say, but if they can just scan the QR code and go straight there, it's one less step. So we will incorporate that again. Any other questions?
well, I just had an idea. I think sometimes there is a nursing tent with maybe the MOPS group or something, where people will be sitting in the cool, a specific demographic of people who have kids. That might be a good place to put some of those as well.
Do they usually have any kind of tables or anything like that sitting out?
I think so. I think they usually have a tent where moms can go back and nurse or feed, and then they probably have something out front that they're giving away stuff. So
it might be good for us to have like table tents or like a little postcard with the same type of thing that they can just grab and take.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and
I'll try to find out who's doing that this year, but the chamber might also have that information,
Okay.
because usually there's one of the moms groups doing it.
You know, if we're gonna do that, we might look at, the fans are great, we've been getting them out of our booth, but most of us are gonna work a little while, and then we're gonna go mess around with the Blueberry Festival, et cetera. Wonder if we could get like business cards size things printed up that said, we're doing a downtown master plan committee, here's a QR code, and every one of us just get, you know, 50 or 100 of them, just walk up to complete strangers, say, hey, check this out, hey, check this out, you know, and it couldn't cost much to do that, and we might be surprised at how much input we could get from that, especially if it was QR code easy, you know, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the fans are very popular, but then you don't want to carry around the arm full
Yeah,
once you leave the booth and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
that's easy to do.
And I think it'll work great for us, the Kiwanis Club, because we're entertaining a lot of people that are eating pancakes, and they're sitting at the table. So if you have a little card, QR, I think that's
we
what
could
you're
even lay
saying.
them out on the tables there.
Lay them on the tables, yeah.
Absolutely.
Get a good response.
You know, Brandon talking about kids, moms and kids, and I think about schools, because NISD is going to be out the month, but they're still in and out. And I think hearing from teachers would be super valuable because they see families and communities in action all year long. And so maybe, you know, pretty quick here, before school's out, we could, you know, touch in photos and they're having an in-service meeting or talk to some teachers some kind of way. If anyone wants to take charge of checking that out or not, I'll do that. Because I mean, there's a core group of people that you're not going to get together, you know, any other time or whatever together now.
Maybe the cards or an email, like a district-wide email. I mean,
I'll message Katie, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe just call it school and ask the principal if there's any time we can have, you know, even 15 minutes with all the teachers.
I would say even just NIS the admin communication department.
Okay.
Because that way they can actually send it to all staff, not just teach. I mean, because they have a way.
Then we'll give a contact for that.
Mr. Les Lamorter.
Okay, I have his email address.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something we can reach out and see what they think the best format would be, because I mean, of course, if they're dealing with the schools, they're gonna know the best way to reach everybody. So yeah, we can see what
the teachers.
And being aware,
I'll make sure to go to
being aware there's 12 days left of school.
Yes, so I'll do that first thing tomorrow morning. Yeah, because I know there's gonna be a ton of end of school year stuff, and so at least we can make contact now and see what the best way to do
At
that
least,
is.
yeah, because teachers are a very valuable resource.
That reminds me, just on our contact list, you know, in the summer, the school district has a summer feeding program. The Rotary Library partners with it. They go to certain locations in town and on a regular basis and give out meals. That's a great group of people that, you know, I mean, we probably can figure out even something to give the Rotary Library or stuff them in the meals when they pick them up or something like that. That's a sector that might not show up in some of these other places, and that's a touch point that we already have existing.
So even the cards that you were mentioning with the QR code,
Put 'em in
but
the
also
mail.
they do it in English and Spanish. That would be.
Okay.
Yeah, and one thing that Brisa and I were just chatting about on the side that we'll add to the facilitator notes and to the form, but I'll say it here just to remind you guys, definitely if you guys host a meeting, take a photo of it. You know, we'd love to capture those and we'd love to see those and be able to kind of, as we tell the story of all the engagement that happened, especially any that are in kind of a unique setting, like if anybody's, you know, having fun out around a pool or a grill or wherever, snap a picture of your meeting and submit that with your answers.
Yeah, because things like that may seem superficial as far as like, take a picture of your group in these questions, but it also helps on the city side and the civic brand when we kind of share that on Facebook or on Instagram, that these groups are talking about these plans, and it's something that does better with all the algorithms. You know, people see it and they say, hey, that looks kind of fun, and they're still doing productive things, and maybe we get more people off of that. So sometimes it seems silly when we're like, hey, snap a picture for Instagram, but it works.
Well,
I promise it works.
Check your phone right now.
Exactly. I mean,
Because I just took 2 while ago and I've already sent you.
Exactly. So any little bit helps, and different things reach different groups of people, and that reaches a lot of people.
Okay, any other questions? I want to respect their time. And anything from the consultant group? Ryan, anybody?
I'm good on our side.
No, nothing from me. I'm just excited to see that we're now at the step that we can go out as a committee to reach different meetings, different groups, and through this meeting process. So thank you everyone for your commitment to this. It's really exciting.
Jessica, you got any other cleanup work?
So as a reminder, we'll be going, or the comp plan committee will be doing the same thing tomorrow. Make sure they work all the kinks out, they understand the whole process. And then when the website goes live and this goes live, I'll be sending a link out to everybody that you can start sharing. We just want to make sure they get eyes on it before we start sending it out to everybody. So we'll have that next week and send that out to y'all. Our next meeting is June 8th at 3:30. We're back in this room now that the painting's done and all of our new tech is installed. So we'll be back here June 8th. Before that, since June 8th, that's right up to Blueberry, I'm actually going to send out a sign-up sheet before our next meeting, giving different Blueberry shift times. Hopefully, we're going to have one downtown planning committee and one comp planning committee person per shift, so that way we can all talk and visit the people that are coming through Blueberry Festival. So I will send that out probably in the next week or so we can start getting people signed up before you go on vacation and make all your other summer plans. And then I'll send out the links to the articles I just mentioned. And as we get more outreach dates and different things that DTJ is going to come to and Civic Brand as far as big community events, as we get those dates, I'll send them to y'all. Some of these outreach events, you know, if they come to Blueberry, for example, they're not because we're working on that one. But if they come to a certain festival, doesn't mean you have to attend, but it doesn't hurt. It's always helpful to the community to see that we have committee members that are involved, they're engaged, they're wanting to be there. So I'll send you any of those dates and as many of them as you can make, that would be great. So do y'all have any other questions or?
And just one tiny little last idea, if we're gonna print those cards up, maybe print more than we're thinking because, and you know, Chick-fil-A may have corporate policies that don't allow it, but you know, Ben probably makes the policies for the college. But we might be able to make those available at businesses around town. I certainly would put them out at the bank and all. I mean, they're just a card that says "NAC together." And as we do this, people are going to know more what that is. And oh yeah, I've been meaning to look at that, and they snap the QR code. So I would think that's maybe something we can really run with and get distributed to a variety of businesses around town.
Jessica, have y'all considered t-shirts?
I was gonna say that.
The NAC Together t-shirts?
We haven't talked about it yet, but if that's something the groups are really interested in, we can start looking at that. Some of this, we have to look at what we can fit in our budget, what fits in the city budget, but if that's something that,
I just think that, I was just gonna say that, just because if there's gonna be different opportunities to meet as a committee and then in the community, and then going out to a stranger and saying, hey, you need to check this out, it's gonna be more accepted if there's a representation, rather than mean, even though we dress professionally, or, I mean, that just a total stranger coming in, you know, hey, let me talk to you. But at the same time, they will be able to see not only the brand, but to me, even that's kind of promoting the, you know, we're excited about this is.
yeah, so it kind of promotes it and gives you some credibility that you're not just Joe Public.
Exactly.
Well, I like if we do t-shirts, then put the QR code on the back, but the QR code that says scan me.
That's a good idea.
Rather than a bunch of sheets of paper flying everywhere.
I'm sorry, that's a
Walking
great idea.
rule.
I'll do it that way.
Yes.
So just say scan me.
Yeah,
They'll do
I'm
that.
all
They'll
for
pop
that.
up in that way. That's a way
On your
of
back.
How long are people actually do it out of curiosity versus
Yes.
a little flyer?
That's
Yeah.
a great
So
idea.
you might need to put the t-shirt size on there.
Yeah, so we'll look into options on that. I'm gonna see where our funding lies, and I will work on that and get back to y'all on that.
Okay, well, y'all keep saying things, and it makes me think of some other idea, I know I'm talking too much, but maybe some of those little yard signs, so that to put in front, if you're gonna be having a meeting there Tuesday night in front of the bank, there's a sign, people drive by, they're having a NAC Together meeting, and they drive by somewhere, so they're having a NAC Together meeting, you know, just to kind of show people that it's happening all over town as they drive around, people drive, people in their cars, and that what they see in town is what they see in their cars.
That catches the eye of everybody.
Yeah, all those
Just trying to imagine Jenna when I come home from the tattoo shop with the new tattoo on the sleeve that says "Scan me."
We're gonna put all that scan me on Ben.
Walking, talking billboard, I like that.
All right, if nobody else has anything else, I hope you appreciate that we try to honor time and that the city works hard to make this feel professional and don't forget from the very beginning, we said we're not going to rush this. It's a fine process that takes time, but we are making progress and you're starting to see it take some shape. So we appreciate everything you do. And we'll see you at the Blueberry Festival and we'll also see you in June. All right, can you adjourn?
Thank y'all.